Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We trust that your weekend was a good one. It is 6 o'clock, and that means it's time once again for our English News Edition. And I'm Daniel Cook, your host, bringing you a translated version of today's Albanian news. The President of the European Parliament, Mr. Martin Schulz, is currently paying a two-day visit to Tirana. Mr. Schulz is visiting Tirana for the very first time and arrived on the day that the primary political adversaries in Albania reached an agreement on the justice reform. Mr. Schulz held a meeting today with the Assembly Speaker, Ilir Meta. He did not give a concrete response about the opening of negotiations for Albania's EU membership. Instead, he asked for a sustainable reform. Mr. Schulz said, "One of the main elements of providing sustainability in the country is the continuation of the reforms, especially the justice reform, which is vital for the increase of foreign investments in Albania. After my discussions with the Assembly Speaker and other stakeholders, I believe we will reach a common conclusion for the continuation of this reform," said Schulz. However, it seems as though the recent consensus has not made the EP president optimistic about the opening of negotiations, and he even stated that they will not be opened this year. He went on, "The second half of 2015 will be fast. I express my support for the reforms, and it's important that they are effective and successful. You have the full support of the European Parliament, but the EP is not the only party that will decide on whether to give a positive response. During the second half of this year, we will promote positive debate on the issue, but at the moment, I cannot give a positive response." Mr. Meta applauded the agreement between the EU and Greece and thanked Mr. Schulz for supporting Albania's integration and keeping the EU enlargement perspective alive. The Assembly Speaker, Ilir Meta, said that he values the technical assistance provided by the European Parliament in the EU integration process, and he gave assurance that the work on the reform will continue, especially the work on the justice reform. Mr. Meta said, "Albania is on the right track. The most important thing is to advance quickly with the reforms, especially the judicial reform. If we do this, the opening of negotiations will be simple." Mr. Schulz had a message for the Albanian political class. He said, "For the EU, Albania plays a major role in supporting international relations, especially with Russia. Regarding the relations between the EP and the Albanian Parliament, I have to underline that in many cases, the internal debates and the spirit of discussion between political parties here in Albania are relayed to Brussels and Strasbourg. The internal debates ought to remain here. We are optimistic that the relations between us will deepen in the future," concluded the EP president. Mr. Schulz held a meeting today with the president of Albania as well. With the mediation of the internationals, the Socialist Party and the Democratic Party have successfully finalized their negotiations on the justice reform. The parties have agreed upon an equal representation of the Democratic Party in the Commission, but without veto rights. The agreement between the parties was confirmed by the head of the Justice Commission, Fatmir Jafaj, and the Democratic MP, Edward Halimi, who had this to say, "We have agreed on the justice reform. The Commission will have 10 members, 5 from the opposition and 5 from the majority. Whenever the votes are equally split, the chairman of the Commission will make the final decision. The fate of the integration of the country is related to the justice reform. We hope we successfully finish the reform," said Jafaj. The statement was made after a meeting with the U.S. Ambassador Donald Liu and the EU Ambassador Romana Vlahutin in the Assembly. In the recent days, the two parties have been involved in intensive negotiations with the mediation of the international partners to decide on the composition of the Justice Commission and to finalize the justice reform with the consensus of both parties. Failure to reach customs revenue expectations in the first 5 months of 2015 has brought a harsh response from the Minister of Finance. The shortage translates into 7.5 billion lek less than what was predicted by the budget. In a meeting today, Mr. Tsani asked for answers on why customs is not meeting its revenue goals. He warned the administration that if they do not engage in the collection of revenue, they will be removed from their positions. The minister urged the directors of every department of customs to establish indicators that measure their daily work. He said that the current situation is unacceptable and demanded immediate action and an overall change in mindset. He said, "There is a shortage in the projected customs revenue, and we must determine who is responsible. The administration members should be masters of their duties. The government does not intend to raise taxes, but we aspire to collect all of the revenue that we projected. Any who are not part of this commitment will no longer be part of the Albanian Customs Administration. Sani announced that the ministry and its subordinate institutions are drafting a careful plan of measures to improve the collection of taxes and of customs revenue. The German Bank for Development has given a loan of €25.5 million to Albania for the construction of water supply systems in different areas of the country. Around 75,000 citizens are expected to benefit from the projects, especially in the rural areas. A representative from the Albanian Fund for Development says that the aim is to build water supply systems in the needy locations with higher populations. In addition to problems with water distribution, the Democratic MP Kozma Dashi raises the concern of flat-rate bills in the villages. According to him, this is a problem that must be resolved. The German government has also given €40 million for the energy sector. These agreements are part of the package of 6 agreements that were signed by the Albanian and German governments during the visit of the German Chancellor, Angela Merkel. A recent study by the Save the Children Foundation shows that hundreds and thousands of minors are being involved in theft, distribution of narcotics, and in different physical conflicts. The report indicates that minors who become involved in these behavior patterns have the tendency to repeat their offenses again. The report shows that 622 minors have become involved in physical conflicts with their peers, as well as with adults and institutions. The study highlights a concerning phenomenon, which is repeat offenses. Out of 148 people who were questioned, 34 said that they have committed these offenses repeatedly. The experts say that more work is needed in the correctional facilities. The Save the Children Foundation finds that often the reason for repeated offenses are lack of education, difficult living conditions, and keeping bad company with problematic peers. The bill on higher education was the source of some debate in today's meeting of the Economic Commission. The majority members raised concerns about the amount of tuition that the students are having to pay. To attend university, a student initially has to pay four different tuition fees, and that does not even cover other necessary costs like books and supplies. The Minister of Education, Lindita Nicola, said today that the universities will not be funded